I was one of the larger nightclub promoters in New York City. I was working in a lot of different industries. I actually did some stuff with Trump.
Interesting.
I want you to like Avalanche was basically the premise.
For any niche, like you can define a niche.
D-King has their own proprietary data using an investment fund, gave them $300 million to trade with.
And you being that face of AVAX for AI projects, are you trying to be like the virtuals for AVAX?
I will say this, that we're putting things together. The first projects like Agent XYZ that are onboarded, but subsequent projects will be launching on the launcher. The public can create their own conclusion about, is this the virtuals of AVAX? But I'll let people make that statement, not me. You cannot fear failure. Anything can fail. A lot of people don't try anything new because they're afraid to fail.
Got it.
In Ava Labs, in the foundation, in the InfraBuild program, in Codebase, they flew me to London to help train their top 5 teams, the 5 startups that were chosen. Avalanche seems like a great opportunity for the right project. So it just excited me as a challenge.
Like, what's perhaps the next trend or narrative that you're seeing that could be something that people could, catch on early? Hey everyone, this is Saib here. Welcome back to the Base Show again. And today, this one's going to be really fun because I've got someone who's been quietly building, but most of the time very loud on the timeline, or at least got some really loud opinions on the timeline, but also someone that's been at the forefront of shaping the meta, someone that's actually been deep into the trenches, but also built products and now has massive conviction into certain AI plays, but most importantly, a very interesting chain, AVAX, right? Yes, he's a part-time trader, a full-time builder, a very good storyteller. Basically, you could say sometimes a philosopher, but most importantly, he is the ghost that you guys know. Hey, welcome Ghost to the Base Show. Let's get into it. How are you today?
I'm great. Excited to be here. It's interesting that you mentioned philosophy is my favorite subject. So,
I mean,
if I come across as a philosopher on the timeline, that's interesting.
You've got some really interesting takes on the timeline. You've got some, sometimes it could be philosophical, it sometimes could be controversial, but I mean, at least one thing I know, it's candid, right? That's pretty much what I've learned. That's you basically.
Yeah, I think, it's important to. I think that crypto is a very interesting space because it's permissionless and it's not gated. It's decentralized, which is good and bad. And I think the bad part of it is that I'm anon, but I'm anon for a reason because I have an identity that I feel would be unsafe for me to be too public about crypto. I think there's wacky people on the timeline, but I think that people I think because of its decentralized anonymous space, the way it is, it kind of attracts a lot of people who it's easy to be artificial because you don't see their face and you don't know who they are. So it brings a lot of artifice. And I think I want to counteract that a little bit by trying to be as authentic as possible.
No, that's fair enough. I guess, a lot of people have, I mean, you are not Ghost for a lot of people that have met you, especially in the most recent AVAX summit as well, right? So I guess for everyone that's questioning whether Ghost has ever doxed himself, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that can attest to that. But Ghost, tell us who are, who, I mean, for people that don't actually know the real you, like who is Ghost off the timeline, right? Like, I mean, I've seen several posts of yourself talking about living a very comfortable life before Web3. You've built a lot of stuff in Web2, right? What were you doing before Web3 and what basically made you leap into Web3?
Well, I mean, I'm a family man. I'm married, I have kids, and that's the most important thing to me. And the most important thing to me is to provide a comfortable life to them. And that's really what I care about. I don't really care about material possessions for myself or anything. And yeah, before crypto, I'm still, have one foot in a lot of Web2 stuff. I don't want to abandon that because I love it. Um, but I've done a lot of stuff. I've always been entrepreneurial, so I did a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, and then I also have some formal schooling as well, which I can talk about very briefly. But actually in my early 20s, I did all kinds of things. I was a nightclub promoter in New York City. I was one of the larger nightclub promoters in New York City, working with some of the biggest clubs at the time. And I, um, was involved in, I was also working in sales positions. I was working in a lot of different industries. I actually did some stuff with Trump. I don't want to talk about what, but I knew Trump
Interesting.
personally. Yeah. Um, and then actually I did have actually in my 20s I went back to school and I did have an accelerated program where I had a psychology training and background, which then I leveraged into a lot of things that I did in the industry. And I did a number of things where I had a practice, and right now I still do what I would call coaching. I do advising to like just
Entrepreneurs and businesses.
yes, yes. I also do organizational consulting, and I also did forensic consulting. Forensic consulting means you do like a report or an assessment for a court case. And I kind
Interesting.
of I I I had a lot of revenue streams, both working with people, working with organizations, and working with courts, and those are all three different things. I kind of built out a pretty high profile in a certain niche area. I wrote a book with a major publisher. I've been interviewed with pretty much every major publication in the United States, such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. I was in a Vice. It was big at one time as a media company. I was in a documentary by Vice. So I've done a lot of stuff. I've been on national TV a number of times, and so I kind of became dominant in a very uh, long tail niche area. And I also have a business. My wife is in charge of it. I put her in. She helps run it, which is kind of an intermediary, let's say, no fault insurance company that helps. Let's say you were in a car accident and
Right.
the insurance company um, outsources independent doctor to do an evaluation. Well, it's kind of a company intermediary that does all that scheduling and all the reports and so on. And so I kind of help create that, and I don't run that. My wife is in charge of that. But there's a lot of things I did in that area, and it's mainly to do with working with people and solving problems and coming up with solutions. And yeah, I've done a lot of speaking. I spoke at conferences all over the world. I spoke at a conference in Germany. This is related to my field, not related to crypto. Spoke in Toronto and Las Vegas. I mean, I have a pretty advanced CV in a different
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm. I can
I can
tell.
tell.
And and so I I'm kind of let's put it this way, kind of a analytics guy where I obviously like to see what works and understand the nuts and bolts of things, but I'm also a vibes guy, and what I mean by that is I kind of go with my gut feeling and focus on the things that interest me, and if I'm really really interested in something, then I'll probably be, I'm not saying the top guy, but maybe a leader in the area because if I'm passionate about it, I put a lot of energy into it, and I will, you know, uh, kind of advance just based on enthusiasm and effort. So,
Now I bet that's pretty much almost I'd say no one probably knows this about you for sure. Pretty much like 90% of what you just shared, maybe even most of it, right? And I guess now it makes sense why you've got this, you've got your favorite promoter for events, considering that you were used to run events before, but also psychology, understanding the psychology of people, and then running several businesses. Well, I guess entrepreneurial, like you said, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense of like why you've mastered a few of these, using a few of these skill sets and experience in the crypto world. Because I guess you need all a bit of like that gut feeling, that analytics, that psychology feeling as well, right? But I guess at what stage of this whole journey of like when you were dabbling into different businesses did you jump into crypto? What was that moment of you getting into the whole Web3 journey and trading or investing?
I started becoming a retail investor in 2017. By retail I was on crypto, no, sorry, I was on Twitter with a professional identity.
Mm.
Um, you know, I was doing writing at the time too. So, like I said, I had written a book. I had a column in Psychology Today and stuff. But so I was on Twitter, but I was not on crypto Twitter. I did not have this ghost identity. I was just sort of a guy on Coinbase buying BTC or
Ripple.
BTC, yeah, Ripple and BTC Cash, and I don't even know what the fuck I was buying.
Uh-huh.
EOS.
Back in
I
the
was buying all kinds
days.
of, yeah, buying shit I didn't really understand because it was in the news, and this was like the bubble of November, December 2017,
Yep. Yep.
and then it all like literally crashed in
Got
a
the best
month.
bus. Yep.
Yeah, and then 2018, like it all crashed really hard, and there are people before me, people who are doing ICO deals and stuff. I was like, that's why I emphasize I was retail, and I was just a total noob, total outsider, and yeah, I wasn't that active after the crash. In 2018, 2019, I wasn't active. I just held the shit that I bought. It was way down. It was way underwater. I didn't follow along. And then in 2020, obviously COVID and the quantitative easing started, and all the equities and crypto started ripping. And and I had friends at the time who were getting very heavy into NFTs, and they were buying. One had bought a CryptoPunk, and um, this was now even fall 2020.
Yep.
And I remember thinking to myself that one thing I had dismissed. I was a retail buyer in 2017, but I never looked deeply into the underlying tech. And
Mm.
then I started to see a lot of real world applications that seemed interesting. Like you had the DeFi summer in 2020, and then you started having the NFTs in 2021, and the gaming, like the metaverse. I'll tell you what really hooked me was the metaverse. The
Interesting.
metaverse seemed, yeah, well, the concept of it seemed very, very exciting to me. And it was like this decentralized world where you can create your own space and you own it. And
Yep.
obviously with blockchain, you can own it. The whole thesis made sense, and it was a Kool-Aid kind of idea, but it also made sense at the time because of COVID, and everyone was isolated and everyone was distancing, and so the metaverse was like where everyone was going to be at, and so it all made sense. And um stuff like Sandbox and like I was buying up Sandbox land, and
Yep.
I was down bad on that, and that's what really started pulling me in. It was actually the NFTs, and the metaverse concept was really exciting to me because I always, what really hooked me into crypto, and again, I was a buyer much earlier, but hooked me was I don't know, real world use cases, the consumer tech products that were bleeding edge, that were moving the space forward, that was new tech. Like I honestly was interested in the tech. Now, obviously, I want to make money. I don't want to lose money,
Yep.
but I wasn't the kind of guy who said I'm going to come into the space because I saw a shitcoin jump 100x. I want to get rich quick.
Mm-hmm.
The futuristic utopian idea behind it was what hooked me in.
Right.
Um, and then I started getting deeper into it, and that I got hooked in, and then I was pretty much mainly a large part of my portfolio at one time was like NFTs and gaming NFTs and metaverse related stuff, which fell away quickly. That was a phase in 2021, 2022. I think the other side was the thing that popped the metaverse.
That was the absolute top. Well, what a flex it used to be to have a land in sandbox and all these um, I don't know what I should say, the good old times where our bags are, we were just so um, we had this massive hopium, that they will be increasing in value. And but yeah, you're right. Like, I guess other side, ah man, that was painful. That definitely was painful because remember, max mint. I mean, not max, but like minting that, and then hoping that this was going to be one of the most important assets in the Yuga land ecosystem as well. But again, I think you said it perfectly right. You came in as a noob in 2017, and then again the tech and the interest of consumer app what you're in 2021. I guess hopefully you exited most of your NFT bags in time, because I still kind of round tripped a lot of my gains on those on that era.
Yeah, I mean, Sandbox, I lost money. Other side, I was a holder of at the time I had at the time I didn't have a bored ape anymore. I had a mutant ape, and did I, so I got one land for free, and I got two lands on the whitelist. So I had three lands. I sold two at the top, 7 ETH, and then one I just you know sold at 1 ETH. So I would say overall, I don't know, is it a slight profit, a slight loss, or break even? Because other side was profitable and everything else was a loser. So I probably broke even, or if I made money or if I lost money, it wasn't significant.
Well, I guess as they always say, whether or not we lost money, I think what NFTs really kind of gave us was the community side of things, right? And I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. What actually? Because I remember like when I knew you, you were running the Gaming Ghost Guild, right? I think that was like you were and hence, I mean, I guess what was the whole, was that when you actually got super bullish on gaming? And like, I guess what was that journey starting to look like from, NFTs to metaverse, and then going down the rabbit hole of, let's say, building a community.
I had a project that it was on Solana, a gaming project that wanted me to help out as a KOL at the time. This was fall 2022. I started my account. I mean, I was obviously involved in crypto before, but I started the Ghost account in January 2022. So by October of that year, I had about 8,000 followers, I'm estimating. And by the way, it was organic. Like I never had the agenda to drive the account.
Mm.
It kind of built organically over time. And then at that time, I was also very active in a group called Solana Yacht Club, which is a bunch of Bored Ape and Mutant Ape holders who are also active on Solana. And I think that's what also helped my account grow because at the time, holding one of these apes was a big status symbol. I didn't hold it for the status, like I was interested in what they were building with the metaverse thing again, but
Right.
it was a big status symbol. So if you had the PFP and then you were on Solana, I mean, it just drew followers, and also maybe I was saying stuff that was interesting to people. So it was a combination of things where the account grew to about 8,000 in October. And then I had a game that contacted me that wanted me to help out with some KOL related matters. And they wanted me to help out, sort of build out or draw in more users, obviously, which is what they want. I said, you know what? This is a good opportunity for me to try to just have my own community of
Mm.
people that I could leverage towards any gaming project, people who are self-identified as people who are gamers and are in Web3, but also game IRL. They're not just in gaming as farmers, but they are genuine gamers, and try to build a community out of that, because then any project I work with, there's a ready-made community. And so I created Discord. The first day, 200 or 300 people joined. Most of them were weeded out because, most people are farmers. They're not real gamers. And, we wanted a real community of gamers.
I can tell. I can tell firsthand how you're very active in weeding out the non-active guys. Being part of DTR, I can tell very active in making sure that whoever's in it is in it for not just receiving but giving as well.
Yeah, I mean, there is a problem look, everyone on some level wants to extract from Web3 because everyone wants to make profits.
Absolutely.
But, but there has to be a give and take. You cannot actually have a any kind of a flourishing community if everyone is extracting. You got to give first and then you take.
Yep.
And so that is something that's very intentional for me. Like, it really annoys me. It's one thing if someone, I don't know, it annoys me if someone, close to me is asking for handouts, but it's doubly annoying if a stranger who you owe
Mm.
nothing to is asking for handouts, which happens in this space all the time. It's really weird that some anon stranger is entitled to handouts. But yeah, that's the culture I want to create. And so it actually kind of took off, I think. I wouldn't say, I don't know what takeoff means. I mean, it is a reliable community that still exists
Yep.
3 years later. So most Discords are shut down. So it exists. We still have game nights every Sunday. I have a community member who runs the game nights. I have another community member who does all the CM stuff. We have all the giveaways still. We talk to all the gaming projects still. I'm a little more hands off with it. So I would say it's just a community that still exists and is still pretty active. And yeah, so gaming to me at the time was the best possible, I thought, use case of crypto as having a consumer kind of breakout
Mm-hmm.
where normies would be onboarded. That was not just related to the financial incentive of greed, like I want to make 100x on a meme coin. Um, I've always looked down on that behavior, I'll be honest. I, to me, it's I'm not going to blame, I'm not blaming anyone. I understand. But at the same time, from my perspective, it's not dissimilar to the person who's always at the corner store buying lottery tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not a long-term strategy, buying lottery tickets.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, I guess there are people, insiders, who have an edge and they make money on shitcoins all the time because they're part of a cabal, and that happens. It's an insider game, which also turned
Absolutely.
me off. But if you're just kind of an outsider, and you're drawn to crypto because of pump fun, to me that's the equivalent of the guy buying lottery tickets every day, and that's not how you succeed in life. So there was always kind of this, like, I don't know, man, a little bit judgmental, a little bit like a sour taste in my mouth about that kind of attitude. And the point I'm getting to is I never thought it would take off in a mainstream way. Like last year, there was this huge financial nihilism in the space where everyone said all of crypto is a scam. The only thing left is meme coins, and all the normies will be onboarded by meme coins. Do you remember
Yeah.
this was on the
Yep.
timeline?
Yep.
Yep.
And I always thought that was ridiculous because you're trying to say that you're going to normalize crypto as being the digital lottery. And lottery is mainstream in the sense that, it exists all over the world, but it's not something that, people wake up and say, you know what, I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going
Yep.
to scratch off lottery tickets. That has never been a normalized way to proceed in life. So I thought it would fail. The first time people started losing a lot of money, it would turn them even more sour onto crypto. And I want to be in a space that excites me. Like, I've accomplished stuff in life. I don't need to be in a scammer space. Like, that that is not where I want to spend my time. And so I
Well,
Yep.
I mean, I guess it's also got a lot to do with like the flexes that people share on their timelines, right? I think all their screenshots and the mainstream news that covers like when I don't know when if you remember last cycle Doge, Shiba, all these like 100x's that people experienced. It kind of gives that sort of picture that paints a picture that hey, you can walk into crypto and gain that 50 or 100x's overnight, right? So I guess people justify themselves by saying community is the tech for at least these meme coins or some, right? But of course, like I think from a skill set perspective, if you're not the kind of curious entrepreneurial, or I mean, you don't have to be entrepreneur, but like the kind of the curious person who's trying to dig deeper into like the tech behind it, the team behind it, the fundamentals. I guess that's where majority of us people are like lazy and feel like they need that leverage, or that and that borrowed conviction from people to trade on the next alpha, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. A lot of you look on the timeline, a lot of people on the timeline are looking for borrowed conviction, which is why they follow KOL calls and so on and so forth. Um, and look, the thing is it takes time, I think, to develop your own confidence in yourself. There's a lot to say about. Now we're talking about a psychological issue, which is your own confidence in yourself to make your own decisions.
Yep.
And actually, I wouldn't mind talking about that more in a bit. Actually, I think it's interesting as it relates to this space. But yeah, we'll come back to it if you want. But
Yep.
I think that what I was ideally hoping for is that crypto would be more normalized as having real technology that any consumer would want to interact with, and it wouldn't be viewed as a scam, and that it would really be have more widespread appeal beyond just a casino.
Yep.
And I think most people um, could understand the value prop in gaming in terms of you own your own assets, you own your own skins, you own your own playable characters. It just makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, we spoke. I mean, I think you were very loud on the timeline about gaming at some point. You invested. I mean, we invested in gaming tokens out there that unfortunately didn't hasn't really worked out, right? I mean, we could go on with number of names out there, but I guess moving on. And one of my main questions, kind of like, today you're so loud about AI, right? My question was like, was this, I don't want to call it a pivot, but like, was this move in interest purely based out of the fact that you were like, I mean, of course, AI is taking over the world. You got burned out of the whole gaming meta, but like, what was the natural progression? Was it an opportunity that you started making money, or you saw interesting products that hence moved you towards that area? Now that you're such a very vocal person in the AI space.
no, it was just everything that I had wanted out of gaming that it turned out to be AI. Like in other words,
Interesting.
my hopes for gaming were more realized through AI. Now, mind you, I don't just talk about things. Like I participate, like everything I held, I participate in every gaming tournament of the projects I held.
Yep. Yep.
I placed very highly. First of all, um, there was this Infinity Gods leaderboard of just gaming NFT holders.
You were
Okay,
top
so
three
I
or
was,
something.
yeah, so I was one of the biggest gaming whales, and to me that was, yeah, kind of important, not as a flex, but to show that I'm not a LARP. Like I actually
Mhm.
support the space, and I participated in all the tournament, and I did very well. I was top three in Super Champs. I was number two in God. Um, and there are many others. And I participated in the tournaments, and I wanted to model kind of being an investor player type of person, which is what I was hoping that there would be more people like that in the space. Because even a
Mhm.
lot of the gaming KOLs, they never played the games. I just the level of sort of incongruence just makes me mad sometimes. But I was really trying to show a level of congruence and authenticity in the space by being a holder and a player and trying to push the space forward. There's a few issues though, okay? So which AI solves. First of all, I was always interested in AI. It's not like AI was just sort of came across my radar a few months ago or something. I was always interested. It fulfilled the thesis that I was seeking, which is a consumer-facing product that could come out and emerge out of crypto and have some use cases for normies. But most importantly, what excited me the most is it solved a few problems.
Yep.
So first and foremost, let's talk about the tokenomics model of gaming, why it's kind of wrecked. So a game, to create a game, and a lot of this stuff, I look back on it, it's a little bit embarrassing that these are things I'm only really realizing in hindsight, and we all are. But at the time, we all were drinking the Kool-Aid. We were all spoiled by the Axie Infinities and
Yep.
the sandboxes and all these crazy valuations that made no sense, that it deluded us from truly seeing things through a proper lens.
Absolutely.
But here's the problem with gaming is that, first of all, the success rate is low, as it is with anything else, but the tokenomics and the economics make no sense. So a game is very time and capital intensive. You need at least 5 years for a very good game. Wouldn't even necessarily be AAA quality, just a game that's not like a Pixels DeFi project like On-Chain Heroes. You need 4 or 5 years for a good game, and you need a lot of money, and you're constantly burning money. And so let's say a project says we need $10 million to build a game. We need $10 million for 5 years. That is not a lot of money. You have staff to pay, you have a team, you have vendors. So we need to raise $10 million to have just the basic quality of game. Now, what are we going to do? How are we going to raise that money? Okay, well, we can offer equity. Most of these investors in crypto, they want tokens. So we need a token to pay off investors.
Yep.
But we don't want to give 100% of our tokens away to investors. We need to give it to community. We need to give it to the team. We need to have a treasury for OTC deal. Like, we're not just going to give it all away. So what's a fair amount to give to investors? Oh, I know, 20%. So if you need to raise $10 million and you want to give 20% to investors, your valuation is already $50 million. So we already have a dead end because A, crypto doesn't want to wait 5 years for a product. B, there is no game that's going to justify at this point in time a $50 million market cap on their token. So immediately all of your funding is dried up. No one will invest in that anymore, and you can't build your game. The economics make no sense. Now, with AI, it's quite different because what we already see, first of all, it's less time intensive. It certainly is. But in comparison to gaming, it's less time intensive, it's less capital intensive. You can iterate faster, you can fail faster. Failing and iterating faster is very important. So as an example, the AI space has moved very rapidly, where we had all these projects that were like chatbots, and everyone was super impressed. Like, do you remember Goat? Everyone was really impressed that there was this nonsense being posted on Twitter, and it went to, I don't know, over $1 billion valuation.
Yep.
And then everyone was super impressed that you had, like, Hey Anon, some terminal that could switch for you. And now what we have are autonomous trading. Like one of the projects I'm in, Brain, I just gave them money through my Hyperliquid account, and it's trading on my behalf.
Yep.
And it's AI. And so this all happened in 9 months. So you iterate rapidly. In addition, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create your own LLM. You just need to have good data and good algorithms. Obviously, if they're proprietary, if you have a moat, you'll have an advantage. And so what we're really talking about is your own RAG. You can use any existing LLM. If you have your own RAG, which is valuable, you can start a business with it. And it's hard to have something useful or something with a moat, but being hard doesn't necessarily mean capital intensive. and it just means you have an edge. And what's unique about you that you have an edge? And we already have projects that are starting to be revenue positive.
Yep.
So, for example, Brain, um, they they have a revenue model where they take a cut of your fees, of the trading fees, and they'll have vaults coming up soon, and so on and so forth. But they make profits based on their own trading, like a prop shop. Right now, they're moving towards a hedge fund model, but their revenue, they're in profit as a prop shop using their own algorithms.
And a very
Okay,
lean team as well.
they're very lean,
Yep.
and two projects that I'm very bullish on are DKing, which is Draft King, and Aon, AION. They both have subnets that they own on Tensor and on BitTensor, and they have different value props, but they're both going to be using vaults. DKing has their own proprietary data using a kind of advanced video recording where they record football games and they create probabilities for every movement. Based on their own probability and data sets, they create um, they look for edges in different odds, gambling
Yep.
odds on the games. They have a very successful hit rate, and they're opening vaults shortly for the public. They have an investment fund. They didn't name who it is yet, but I was told it's legit by people I trust. They will announce it shortly. But an investment fund gave them $300 million to trade with. And their model is a typical hedge fund model where they take 2% management fee and then 20% of profits. And they have $300 million to play with, and that doesn't include the public vaults that haven't been open yet. They already have revenue. That's already $6 million just of management fees. That's revenue.
I I know that you're very vocal about this, and anyone that has caught your tweets definitely, should and would consider this as alpha. But yeah, I'll make sure that this clip is re-emphasized again as alpha. Here you go, guys.
Yeah, and you take a look at another one, Aon. Okay, Aon is doing the same thing, but with prediction markets.
Hmm.
They've had so far publicly an 86% success rate. Now, what's interesting is they're both leveraging, they have their own subnets. So what you have is miners. Now, they're not the same miners as, let's say, the same process as Bitcoin. But what they do is that they're competing to have the best predictive algorithms. And it's sort of fine tuning the algo through a sort of crowdsourcing. It's an interesting concept. So they have proprietary models and proprietary tech just through BitTensor itself. Um, but what's interesting about Aon is they're in the prediction market space. They're opening public vaults in July. Also a 2 and 20 model. Um, they have really interesting tech, and they have really interesting partnerships coming up. And bottom line is there's going to be a lot of interesting revenue streams. One of the interesting pieces is anyone can create a sort of a prediction prop on their timeline, and people can bet on it right there on X and create a betting market, a prediction market right there on the timeline. So
Hmm.
it's like going to be a mini app.
Yep.
Like you create a kind of a poly market bet right there on the timeline using their infra.
For any niche, like you can define a niche. Like if I wanted to bet on horse racing, or is I
Yes.
see. Interesting.
Yeah. So in addition, I do research on all of these projects. The guy behind DKing is um, he. Let me make sure. I yeah. He's. I think it's called Crunchyroll. Is that what it is? I want to make sure I get it because I didn't know what it was before. And no, that Crunchyroll is anime. Crunch. It's something called Crunch something. Anyway, when you look into it, when I was researching DKing, people said this founder is really legit. I said, what's so legit about this founder?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like saying he was a co-creator of CrunchDAO, CrunchDAO. And I was like, okay, what the fuck is CrunchDAO? So then I researched all this. And CrunchDAO is actually a really high level project where what they do is it's sort of like, it's called CrunchDAO. They recruit, it's like a community of 7,000, like you have to apply and you
Mm-hmm.
have to be onboarded. It's 7,000 AI scientists. Most of them
Wow.
have PhDs. These are high level people,
Wow.
and
Okay.
they do like competitions. Let's say a financial firm says, I'm looking for an algo, the best algo for this data set to help
Yep.
us with this high frequency trading issue or something. And they compete for prizes. They'll go to CrunchDAO, I should say.
CrunchDAO. Yep.
They'll go to CrunchDAO and say, you have 7,000 motherfuckers here who are competing for this prize. Why don't you guys have at it? Right? So it's kind of this a DAO of decentralized brain power that can be recruited by any kind of entity, any kind of institution to be hired through a decentralized competitive arena to come up with best algorithms and whatever else that they're trying to recruit, what kind of information they're trying to get. So he was a
Interesting.
co-founder of this, and this is a very well-respected organization. So I was like, this guy's legit. This guy created a very legit business,
Mm.
and his next business is called We Build Score. It's on Twitter, and it's the video recording and mapping of all the football player movements. And then they also invested in their own BitTensor subnet. So these are like, this is a real builder. With
Yep.
Aeon, I was looking at the background of the team. The guy has a PhD in math from Cambridge University, the one founder, and another founder has his own marketing firm that's, in my research, is actually, it's not that vocal on the timeline, but they worked with some of the biggest protocols like Uniswap, and it's a very respected marketing firm that does serious work with protocols, not hypey shit like that you see on Cato, on the people yapping. So these are real builders, okay?
Yep.
And so I do research on all of these. And um, another one I really like right now is the ticker is COM. It's called Compute 3. The guy has a PhD in some kind of hardware computer stuff,
Yep.
and it's a team of 5, and they're all ex-AWS, ex-NVIDIA pros, and it's a sort of decentralized GPU thing where they have a whole stack of older models, not the newest NVIDIA models, but older models, which is okay, and they offer it to people at 70% reduced rates, and they already have like 10 or 15 Web3 clients, and they're scaling out to Web2, and the market cap is only $2 million. So that's another project I want to invest in because it's serious builders and they're already generating revenue. So I could give a lot of examples. Back to the main point. Why
Yep.
is AI so exciting? It's because it's everything I wanted gaming to be. It um, it utilizes blockchain technology to enhance something. So, for example, when you look at decentralized finance, you're not going to have DeFi and blockchain. There's a lot of traders here who are looking for an edge. They would want to invest in a vault that on chain that does trading for them, whether it's on Hyperliquid or on a football game or in a prediction market. You're not going to have OpenAI. You're not going to have Claude, Anthropic as competitors. This is an arena that can be dominated by native Web3 projects that already are generating revenue and bring
Yep.
useful use cases to people. And the more that people become on chain and the more that people become unbanked, this is something that like has value to them. And the valuations are more normal. Like you don't need a gazillion dollars in 5 years to build it out. You can
Yep.
see whether it fails or not in 9 months.
Or
You know,
quicker. Yep.
or even quicker.
Yep.
And the other thing that for me was really, I don't know if revolutionary is the right word, but a real game changer that excited the fuck out of me in the fall of last year, October, November. is you had all of these fair launch, or a lot of them were like insider scams, but the concept of the meme coin fair launches.
Yeah.
But what you started having is you started having tech projects that were fair launching. Now, most of them were LARPs. There was a lot of LARPs and a lot of scams and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But you actually had real builders who were, instead of doing this antiquated model of going to VCs, raising money, you wait 20 years for a TGE, or then they would go to DGens and do a pre-sale, and the DGens are constantly when. You had all of this nonsense. They just fair launched the coin, and people could determine what was its value on the fair market, on the free market. And obviously, most were LARPs and scams and so on and so forth, but you had legit models like the Virtuals launcher, and
Yeah.
you had Creator Bid, and you had real stuff that was being made in a much more sustainable model where you didn't have all of this expectation debt, and you didn't have all of this nonsense where you had investors looking to dump and unlocks and everything else that was eroding trust and ruining the whole reputation. Um, you had a model that was actually sustainable because you would have the revenue from maybe it could be a small pre-sale, or a lot of these fair launches was just sort of like a bonding curve.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, whether it was a small pre-sale that then the team could use towards runway, or if it was a bonding curve kind of process through virtuals or through creator bid, teams were getting a pretty significant chunk of the trading fees. So in the case of virtuals, they take 2%, 1% on the buy, 1% on the sell, and they give 70% of that in the form of CBBTC
Back to the
to
products. Yeah.
back to the projects.
Yeah.
So you now had runway to build something. And in
Absolutely.
the case of Creator Bid, it was 3% on the sell, and I think that they gave 2% back, or I think so, back to the. So all of these projects can build,
Yep.
and it's sink or swim. If the project sucks and it has no interest and it has no volume, okay, well, it's a failed project. But if it does have interest and it has volume, they can keep getting revenue on those trading fees, and they can build something. And because it's AI, yeah, they have to have a staff, and they're building something, but we can see whether they fail much more quickly. They need far less capital. If they get some traction, it's easier for them to get additional funding. There's a lot of stuff that can be done. It's a much more sustainable path. I think the space, because of this new model, it's far more exciting because it's far more lending itself to a free market process. I think it leads itself far more to creative destruction rapidly. Creative destruction is important. We need the shit to fail so that the successful stuff can succeed. But if you have this weird process where any dog shit gets VC funding and then you don't know for 3 years if it fails or not, you're not allowing the free market and the organic process of creative destruction to unfold in its organic way. And this is all happening now. So I think the space is more bullish than ever.
Yeah, I guess those 60 days were like, we saw AI projects launch as quick as memes did, but I guess you're right. Absolutely. The ones that have actually survived that entire that growth and then the dip and built an actual community was, probably the ones that actually have a real product to serve, that are still around today. Right. But Ghost, I guess, it's clear to us, and I guess you have proven this quite a lot of times on your timeline. You have an eye. You have an eye for narratives. You have an eye for good investment opportunities. I mean, you're pretty thorough with your research and your due diligence. Why even get on the whole building arc side of things? Like, why, what made you decide to build AI, IWAX, and what is IWAX basically?
Yeah, I mean, because it's exciting and it's a challenge. It's just a challenge. You want to keep challenging yourself in life. Yeah, that's my motto. You cannot fear failure. Anything can fail. A lot of people don't try anything new because they're afraid to fail. My favorite quote is from Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball
Yep.
players of all time. And I keep going back. I love this quote. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. And that to me is like the best quote ever, because the truth of the matter is the most successful people in life fail all the time, and they're not afraid to fail. The truth of the matter is, if you take a look at any famous athlete, they fail more than they win.
Mm-hmm.
Only one team wins the championship every year. That means everyone's final game is a loss, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Um, so these guys are conditioned to lose. And yeah, you could say, well, they won ultimately because they became pros, but they lost so much of the time along the way. If you take a look at famous musicians, singers, writers, you only see their hits. Maybe they have, 50 songs out over their career, and maybe two or three of them are hits, but you don't see the 500 songs that absolutely sucked and were dog shit and were never published. You never see all the dog shit from the famous writers that were put in the drawer and that no one ever saw the light of day because they sucked. Most people who are ultra successful fail 90% of the time, and you only see the tip of the iceberg.
Yep. Yep.
And in my experience, the people who never accomplish anything are the people who are just afraid of failing. Failing is a natural process where we refine our skills, we hone our skills, we get better. So to me, it was just a challenge. And DTR XBT, let's start with that quickly, was, I had this group and you're in it, DTR. It's just people who are builders in the space, some alpha people, some calls. And I just thought it was interesting to say, can we create a whole project it into a larger, from a small community to a larger group of holders where they would get alpha calls distilled through an AI to holders. And so we built out a terminal. We have it is pure AI. I don't write any of it.
Yep.
It goes through. It reads the timeline of a certain channel. If there are certain signals, it will kind of spit out a report, and then it gets posted. And to me, it was less about making some kind of revenue generating project, but it was about having a community that wanted smart, insightful, AI generated calls from our community. And right now it's at like a $1 million market. I mean, a lot of these projects are just victims of their own hype at the time. Everything had a huge market cap in January. Everything was overinflated. I'll be honest, I think a $1 million market cap is probably fair for what it is. I'm adding more utility, which we'll get to in a second,
Yep.
where we have a leaderboard and people will really benefit from being high on the leaderboard, which leads us to AI Vax. So AI Vax, excuse me, is I had no intention of making another coin. I don't really need this, but what was really interesting to me was I was onboarded to the Avalanche chain
Mm-hmm.
through their kind of KOL manager.
Okay.
And the KOL manager there, the way the whole organization is structured is they have the foundation, they have Ava Labs, which is for profit. They have all kinds of people doing all kinds of tasks. So they have someone who onboards KOLs and works with KOLs. They have what's called Codebase, which is their accelerator program where they try to develop startups. They have a new initiative to build out AI projects called InfraBuild, and they give them grants. So they have all these moving parts in the organization. I was brought in by their KOL manager. He said, I really like your insights on AI.
Yep.
I'd like you to be more involved in Avalanche and see what we have to offer. I want you to like Avalanche was basically the premise. And so they rolled out the red carpet. What does that mean? They introduced me to everyone in Ava Labs, in the foundation, in the InfraBuild program, in Codebase. They flew me to London to help train their top 5 teams, the 5 startups that were chosen to be the last 5 teams in the Codebase program. You know, they're they just were very generous to me and just giving. They did not want. I mean, they obviously wanted me to be
Build on
favorable
the.
towards them,
Yeah.
but they didn't have any like deliverables. They just wanted to show me that we value you. We want you to participate with us. And I said, you know what? Here's the problem. I was burned by the first AI era. Let's say that was from October to January, February. I made good money, but I also bag held some shit at the end that I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But what burned me wasn't necessarily the financial piece at the end, was just how quickly the speculative bubble burst, how many of the projects turned out just to be nefarious LARPs. And some projects were very well-meaning and great, and I still hold them and I love them, like Yumio. Limbo will have a lot of use case in the future. Right now, it's only at 2.5 million because really there's no reason to hold. I guess you can stake for future benefits, but I feel it's undervalued. But it's a real project from a real team that's been building for years, and it's basically competing against a lot of the stuff in Solana is just meme coins, and at the time, what really was annoying to me was all the scams. Like Trump was a coin that was a black hole for liquidity, and then you had Melania coin, and then you had Libra coin,
Yeah.
and you had one scam after another. And every single legit project, and I know there's a lot of LARPs, but every single legit AI project was sort of just struggling to stay afloat in a sea of scams, LARPs, and shitcoins. And what really impressed me with an Avalanche was that they had a more top-down curated approach. They wanted to vet projects. They had a accelerator program that I was tapped into. They had a AI grant program, and they you, not just these programs, but then let's say you applied but you didn't get a grant, which they're very selective, but they still help you. They will generously try to connect you with other resources. They'll try to
Right.
connect you with other teams. Like it's not just like you apply and you're rejected or not. It's not binary. Any legit team, whether they get funding or not, will have a helping hand and will have a warm, welcoming presence trying to support them and try to onboard them and connect them with other projects and other peers and just be helpful. And this is something that you hear over and over again. When project is on Solana, they feel they're on their own,
Right.
and or on base or on virtuals. Look, I'm a big supporter of virtuals, but I don't suggest that teams launch on virtuals not because I'm against virtuals. This is not FUD. I just do not suggest that a project token pair with anything but a either USDC or a solid L1.
Major.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because it has nothing to do with virtual. It has to do with in a bear market, you don't want to add more volatility. You don't want to be dragged down by a smaller market cap project. You want to be with a major that like CBBTC, like um, Mamo, which is a sort of an AI
Yep.
sort of
On base.
yeah, it's paired with CBBTC, which is the synthetic Coinbase BTC, or you want to pair with ETH. It's just a safer play for bear or bull. But so the pitch to around AVAX is you can pair with an L1. You have a very supportive sort of infrastructure,
Right.
and the tech is very good. And this is something else I want to mention. If you are a project that needs it because you have volume, you can have your own subnet. They call an L1, but it's basically you don't share block space with anyone else, and that is a huge plus to the right kind of project. So the tech is very good. There's a lot of pros to Avalanche,
Yep.
and I thought this is a blue ocean because maybe Avalanche isn't the right project for some, but are you telling me that the only 2 players in the space should be Solana and Base? That makes no sense. Avalanche seems like a great opportunity for the right project. So it just excited me as a challenge, and I wanted to make a community around it because that would help to onboard to create the vision I wanted.
Yep.
And I would say, putting aside token price, which is the full utility hasn't been rolled out, and everything generally these days on Avalanche is a little bit down, and everything's down. I mean, alts are struggling generally, unless you have certain outliers. But putting that aside, and I see one of your questions is you've been a little bit quiet about AI vax. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second because um, the interesting thing about my experience so far is that when you come into a new space, like Avalanche is, let's say, a small town. What do I mean? Obviously, it's one of the top 15 L1s in terms of market cap,
Yep.
but you have this OG community there that is very sort of, I don't know, people who are OGs are like, I'm an OG and you're a new guy. You know what I mean? You're a new guy. So there's a territorial aspect to it that I think would happen anywhere. So my experience with Avalanche has been very positive. Everyone has been very nice to me. I made great relationships with people online as well as in person at the London
Yep.
Summit. The London Summit was fucking phenomenal. It was fun as hell. It was just great. But but I also, you have to recognize the trends, and you have to recognize, if I'm going to build this project, who am I appealing to? Am I going to try to onboard every AVAX OG to be a core holder, or am I going to have to create the community
Mm.
on my own? Because the OGs are going to be holding Ket, or they're going to be holding Wolfie, or they're going to be holding something else, but they may be polite and nice to me, and maybe some of them are very supportive, but they're not necessarily going to be the core holders. And so for me to build out the project as it needs to be successful, it no longer, the time for glad handing is over. That
Yep.
doesn't mean I'm still going to be professional or polite and all of that, but the glad handing campaign is over, and now it's building time. And
Right.
what building means is onboarding real projects, creating utility, and creating value accrual for the token. And so we're doing that right now. This week, we're going to announce our sixth. We already announced our fifth. We're going to announce our sixth onboarded project. These are projects that came mostly to Avalanche because of me, and these are solid projects. The value accrual will come from a number of things, including a new social launcher that we created that people say, well, another launcher. It's actually very cool because you can totally whitelist any community you want. I would call it more of a social AI tool with
Yep.
launcher capabilities. It's not primarily a launcher. It has launcher capabilities, but it's a social tool that is fueled with AI insights, and that's, people don't see that yet, but that's being built out, and that will accrue value to the token. And so I'm just in builder mode now because, just like if you want to, let's say you're a politician, there's a time for glad handing, and now that you're in office, now you got to build, and you still have to do some glad handing, but the priorities have shifted.
Ghost, I have a question though. You brought up virtuals and then you brought up this launcher. And I remember when you spoke about launcher, when Moonbags is talking about it. And I guess a good way to, kind of think about it, virtuals actually changed the AI landscape for base, right? I guess if it wasn't for them launching back in December, we wouldn't have kind of seen the AI projects on base today. Some people speculated this on their timeline with this launcher, and you being that face of AVAX for AI projects. Are you trying to be like the virtuals for AVAX? Is AI VAX kind of the virtuals, right? Yeah, I just wanted some thoughts on that.
I think in some ways, but not exactly. So, for example, we're not going to do the token pairing thing. And we're not framing it that way. I would say let it, if it becomes the virtuals of base. First of all, we're not well funded as well, nearly as well funded as virtuals on base to be able to have a big team and to do all that stuff. Although I will say, genuinely that Moonbags is probably more effective than 10 devs. I mean it. He is the most talented dev I've ever seen. He can create amazing shit from scratch within days. His work ethic is insane. He'll work 72 hours without sleep, and he'll accomplish some amazing shit. So actually having him is probably as good as a team of 10. But we have other people on staff, on the team. We have admin people on team who've been with me since Ghost Gaming Guild. We have artists, and we have other people I can call upon, like Felix, who's the dev for DTR
He's
XBT.
actually, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we had guys who worked on the pre-sale website. I mean, there's other people on the team, but obviously we're not nearly as big in scope as Virtuals, and so that's not a fair comparison. I will say this, that we're putting things together. The first projects like Agent XYZ that are onboarded, the community will get pre-sale and airdrop and all that, but because our launcher wasn't ready and I already connected them and they already made agreements, like the first projects like Agent XYZ will launch through Arena.
Okay.
But other projects such as Sherry Protocol, which I just announced, most likely, it seems they're leaning that way. They're going to launch with us. And I think subsequent projects, most of them, probably all of them. But I also want to hedge the way I talk because I don't want to. I'd rather just under
Overpromise.
promise. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's likely that they will because we're in talks about that. And so eventually things will just happen. Instead of me just making this big, da-da, what you'll see is more projects being announced. I won't talk about it. I'll just announce. We have a sixth announcement coming soon. Not the first projects for the reason I already stated, but subsequent projects will be launching on the launcher, and then more projects announced, and more projects on the launcher, and then all of a sudden the public can create their own conclusion about is this the virtuals of AVAX, but I'll let people make that statement, not me. I don't think that's going to be productive.
Well, I guess this is a message to the AVAX Foundation to like help support and make this the virtuals of AVAX. They need funding. um, no, that's interesting, but I guess goes a good question here. Also, you mentioned about the curation of projects and founders. With all these 5 or 6 projects, like I think you mentioned about AVAX and why it's such a blue ocean out there as well. What kind of projects are you launching or looking for, rather, right? And I guess the other question subsequently to that would also be like, if you're curating all these projects, like does that defeat the purpose of letting the community kind of ape into what they may deem to be a good project or not? As you're building a launcher as well, right? So that only goes to say, like, are you siloing the entire funnel essentially?
No, what we're going to do is, and I announced this in our group chats, is there's going to be kind of three parts to it. So there's we want it also to be permissionless. So, and also we're going to have trading fees, and we're going to share that with. So to launch anything, you need to buy and burn AI Vax. There's also going to be trading fees that we share with the creators. There's a whole aspect to it, but there's a permissionless part that any degen can just launch something, and I'm not endorsing. No one's endorsing it. It's permissionless, and any degen can do shit. Why would they
Yep.
want to do it? Why would they want to do it? Is because the social features will be the best in class. They can choose the community that they want. They can have their friends in there, and there's no snipers. It's kind of a best in class, in my opinion, social community with which you can onboard and start your token with. So there's a permissionless aspect. There's going to be a incubated, we're going to call it something else, but people within our community, both AIVAX and DTRXBT, can say, I want to create my own project. Maybe it's just a meme coin. It doesn't have to be something advanced. They can make a meme coin, and the community in our group chats will vote on it. And the founder has to be serious, like they have to have a plan and they have to have art. And we will incubate it. What does that mean? Is that the community will support it, the community will promote it, not me, but the community. It'll be like a DAO, okay? The community will promote it, the community will support it, and they can launch their token um, sort of already with viability because the people within AIVAX, and this is also with DTRXBT, because eventually Fizz Social will be multi-chain and our next stop will be on Base as well. We're going to be on AVAX exclusively for a while and then we're going to move to Base.
Hmm.
And so
Interesting.
DTRXBT will also have benefits here as well. Is, you know, the community as a DAO will kind of vote who the founder will be based on proposals, and they can incubate their own meme coins within the community. So there's that aspect, or it could be a utility token. It could be anything. But then the spotlight will be the stuff that is featured that has the biggest sort of uh, page space, space on the screen are the spotlight legit AI projects that I vet
Hmm.
that will be that will go through Fizz Social, that will have my KOL presence, my marketing, my uh, sort of the heavyweight sort of presence of pushing it forward and really putting it as a spotlight as the reason that Fizz Social exists. The other stuff, I guess, more is in line with sort of these decentralized aspects of crypto. We want it to have a permissionless aspect that
Yep.
also brings revenue to the protocol. So we want a permissionless piece to it, number one. Number two, we wanted a community DAO aspect to it, which again the community will run and they'll take credit or blame for it. If the community launches through a DAO process a meme coin that fails, it's on them. But that's community oriented, and then there's sort of the virtual kind of style of AI launching as well.
I guess there's already been chatters about it in the group, as far as I see in the whale chat.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think
Some one,
that will get energized.
one or two people have already stepped up to kind of be the founder, as far as I read yesterday. Um, Interesting. Ghost, I know we're running short of time and we've discussed a lot, right? I guess one last piece of advice, or let's say, just something. I know you've shared alphas. There have been a lot of insights on the tickers that you're bullish on, or not just tickers, but projects. Where do you see like what's perhaps the next trend or narrative that you're seeing that could be something that people could, catch on early, and maybe not paying too much attention right now?
I'm really bullish on Mega ETH.
Okay.
I really like it. Maybe I'm not that big on NFTs these days simply because of
You've
the
been burned
market sent.
enough.
I've been burnt and they're not as liquid as I would like it to be. Like I want to
Yep.
be able to enter and exit as things change. I ideally would be a long-term holder. Right now, my strategy is to trade most things and then redeposit them or, reallocate into high quality stuff. And I see more and more high quality stuff, especially in the AI field. But I think Mega ETH is really good. Right now, what I would do is play around with their testnet,
Mm.
and they have a number of apps on their testnet. Right now, you can access the testnet. Um, I think you need to DM Bread Guy, who's sort of like their public-facing person
Yep.
for testnet tokens. He's pretty responsive. And then you'd go to fluffle.tools, and you can see everything that's available right now to play around with on their testnet. Why I'm so bullish on Mega ETH is because partly for the same reason I'm very bullish on Avalanche, especially the Codebase program,
Yep.
is they are really using a kind of an accelerator model. They have a program called Mega Mafia, where they kind of incubate or accelerate startups. Also, their startups are focused on consumer finance projects
Yep.
that could have some traction with consumers. They have some promising stuff like GTE is a DEX, a very fast DEX.
Yep.
Noise
Saw
is
that. Yeah.
betting on prediction markets. Euphoria, I haven't tried yet. The other ones I played around with. I've been doing a lot of testnet stuff. But Euphoria is a derivatives
The
trading
trading,
that,
the tap one, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if any of this will succeed or fail, but I like the fact that they have an accelerator model. You have to apply. They're looking for consumer-facing projects that can succeed on a protocol level. Like, I don't like, for example, this is not FUD, this is my opinion. I don't like what the approach that Abstract is doing
Mm-hmm.
because look, if you take a look, what the only thing that really has product market fit in crypto over the years is DeFi and stables. It really is, and you need something that's financialized around it. So, for example, the AI projects that I'm investing in give people a trading edge, or it gives them an edge in terms of a prediction market. I would consider that as DeFi. This
Yep.
is not an AI project that helps you create or generate a nicer picture. That doesn't need crypto. Crypto is DeFi and stables. And so AI projects that give you an edge in, uh, again, DeFi is a big umbrella for me, but prediction markets, gambling, I would consider, depending what it is,
Trading terminals.
trading terminals, that's all DeFi.
Yep.
So I see that as a viable business. And so Mega ETH is investing through their accelerator program and helping to connect them with other outside VCs in consumer-facing products that have shown they might have a product market fit within the crypto space. So I'm very bullish on their approach. Meanwhile, Abstract is focusing on streamers. I have nothing wrong with streamers, but I don't see historically you're trying to reinvent the wheel. You're focusing on streamers, games, and XP. And those are the three things historically that have shown that they fizzle after a TGE. So I hope Abstract succeeds. The only reason I brought it up is as a contrast to what makes me bullish on Mega ETH.
Yep.
Also, what makes me bullish on AVAX is that they have accelerator programs that focus on developing consumer products that have shown to historically have a product market fit in crypto. So I think people are early to Mega ETH. I would take a look at Creator Bid.
Yep.
I don't know how early it is to buying the bid token because it pumped a lot, but their version 2 is coming out this week, and their version 2 is their curated launches. From what I'm hearing is they have a number of good projects that will be launched in the next few weeks that are probably the best in class of all the new stuff. Like, in other words, there's probably 3 or 4 projects that have been waiting 2 or 3 months to launch because they're waiting for V2. So I'm expecting a few good launches to come in the next few weeks, so people should look out for that. I think people should also, if they're interested in AI, they should pay attention to what's going on at BitTensor. It's
Mm-hmm.
still early on BitTensor, but the tech is very, very interesting.
Got it.
Uh,
Man,
um,
you're making me race to deadline to make sure I release all of this within the next coming days, so they don't miss out on the alpha that you've just shared in here. But Ghost, I know you've got to go as well, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm pretty sure that we've got so much golden nuggets from here. It was really good to prick your brains on certain topics and just your general thought process on approaching the space, understanding why you chose the builder model, how you are planning to take AI wax to the next level. But again, most importantly, just really understanding and learning more of your journey and how you basically plan to, keep building in the future. Thanks a lot, Ghost, for jumping on to the Base Show with us here today. I'm pretty sure everyone else knows where to find your thoughts, your alphas, and your rants on the timeline. Until then, guys, cheers, and thanks a lot once again, Ghost.
my pleasure.
All right, signing out, Saib from the Base Show.